Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halston. Thank you to all of the witnesses today. We'll begin our first 5-minute round. And I'm going to start by just exploring how we can respect existing copyrighted works, copyright protections, while continuing to safely develop and advance AI technologies. If we run out of time, we'll do a second round. My hunch is there's at least that much interest. Mr. Brooks, if I might just start with you. Generative AI models like those your company creates are trained in no small part on vast quantities of copyrighted content, on data from copyrighted content. Do copyright owners know if their works have been used to train Stability's models? Is Stability paying rights holders for that use? Why not, if not? And how would doing so impact your business and your business model?
Thank you, Senator. So to the first question, models like Stable Diffusion are trained on open data sets or curated subsets of those data sets. So Stable Diffusion, for example, takes a 5 billion image data set. We filter that for content, bias, quality, and then we use a 2 billion image subset to train a model like Stable Diffusion. Because it's open, you can go to a website. You can type in the URL of an image. You can type in a name. You can see if that work has appeared in the training data set. And then we're working with partners to take those opt-out requests and, as I say, to incorporate them into our own training and development processes. So we do think open data sets are important. They're one part of how we are able to inspect AI for fairness and bias and safety. And so that's, I think, to the first part.
So if I heard you right, if an artist takes the initiative to search your training set, they might be able to identify that a copyrighted work was used and then submit an opt-out request, and you are in the process of facilitating that use. But to my second question, do you pay any of the rights holders?
As I say, Senator, this is 2 billion images, a large amount of content. A lot of it, all kinds of content. Right? Take language models, for example. It's not just books. It's snippets of text from all over the internet. As I say, to make that workable, we believe that it is important to have that diversity, to have that scale. That's how we make these models safe. It's how we make them effective. And so we collect it, as I say, from online data. What I will say is that the data sets that we use, like that 5 billion image data set I mentioned, they respect protocols like robots.txt. So robots.txt is a digital standard that basically says, I want my website to be available for ancillary purposes such as search engine indexing. And so the data set that was compiled respected that robots.txt signal. And then on top of that, as I say, we have the opt-out facility that we've implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Rao. It's my understanding that Adobe is taking a distinctly different approach. Your generative AI model, Firefly, was only trained on licensed data. Were there any downsides economically to that decision? Is your model less robust, or has it had any impact on its performance? And how would you compare these two approaches in terms of the incorporation of opt-out and licensed?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So as I mentioned in the opening remarks, Adobe Firefly, our generative AI tool, was trained on our stock photography collection, which are all licensed assets with the contributors. And that's actually the only data set used in the version that you can use on Adobe Firefly on the web. We think about the quality of this, and when we think about the quality to your question, we had to put a lot of image science behind that to make sure it was up to the level we require, because we didn't have the most expensive version of that data set. So we had to put more computer science behind it to make it have the higher quality we needed. As we go forward, we're looking at whether or not there are other areas where we need to supplement that data set. And for those, we refer to as openly licensed content, or places where the copyright has expired. Openly licensed to us means images that come from the rights holders who have licensed it without restriction. So very similar to what we're talking about in the licensed content. This is also what we call commercially safe.
My sense, Mr. Brooks, is Stability's trying to honor something like 160 million opt-out requests in training your next model. Mr. Rao, Mr. Brooks, this will be my last question, then I'll turn to Senator Tillis. Should Congress be working to ensure that creatives can opt out of having their works used to train AI models? How would you best do that, briefly?
So we have this technology we refer to as content credentials in my opening remarks, and what that does, it's a metadata that goes along with any content. So if you're in Photoshop right now, you could say, I want content credentials to be associated with this image. As part of that, you can choose to say, I want it not to be trained on a do not train tag. That gets associated with the image, and it goes wherever the content goes. So we do think that technology is there and available, and we're talking to other companies, including Stability, about this as an approach to honor that tag, so people, when they're crawling it, can see the tag and choose not to train upon it.
Should we require that?
And I do think that there's an opportunity for Congress to mandate the carrying of a tag like that, a credential like that, wherever the content goes. Right now, it's a voluntary decision to choose to do that.
Should we require that?
There's some very interesting precedent internationally for this. The European Union has introduced certain kinds of text and data mining exceptions, and part of that is to say that you can use this for commercial, non-commercial purposes. There is an opt-out requirement, but the opt-out has to be machine readable, as I say, as a matter of practicality when you're dealing with trillions of words of content, for example, or billions of images in this case. The machine readability is important, and that's where these tags become an important part of how to implement it in practice.
We'll keep exploring this further. Senator Tillis.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to have Senator Blackburn go, and then I'll follow Senator Hirono.
Excellent. Thank you, Senator Tillis. And Mr. Chairman, thank you for the hearing today. It's so appropriate